Hey everyone, it's John here from Hot Take Hockey to give you my top 5 Stanley Cup favorites for 2020. So I'm going to go through my top 5, talk about some honorable mentions here, just a couple, and then give my reasoning for each of the top 5 favorites. So just two honorable mentions I want to bring up. One, the San Jose Sharks, and two, the Washington Capitals. I think for the Sharks, they lost a couple key pieces, one being their captain, Joe Pavelski, but I do think with their core defense like Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, Vlasic, and then of course, obviously the question mark in net, but I do think they have a core that's solid enough to compete in the playoffs, and they have a potential to win the Stanley Cup. The Washington Capitals are another one. I think the Capitals would be it would be their opportunity this year or next, maybe. Again, Nick Backstrom, Braden Holtby, they're on expiring deals. Can they move forward with these two guys into the future, or is this their last year where they have to compete for a Stanley Cup? One other team I would mention would be the Vegas Golden Knights. I know the Golden Knights want their revenge on the San Jose Sharks, and maybe if they can carry that into the playoffs and all the way to the Cup final, you never know. So those are my three honorable mentions. I think the Sharks and Capitals are more of a name where we're kind of waiting for that core to expire. More for the Washington Capitals because they already did win a Stanley Cup, and the San Jose Sharks, they still have younger pieces. And for a guy like Erik Karlsson, he's still fairly young. Brent Burns is getting older, but more for Jumbo Joe. So I think that is a perspective to look at. But let's go to our top 5. Number 5, the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I think the Leafs are at 5 for a couple reasons. I think if you watched my season/playoff prediction video, go check that out. I had the Toronto Maple Leafs as a wildcard team, and a lot of people were wondering why is that? I mean, one, just because the Toronto Maple Leafs maybe go into a wildcard spot or a second division spot, it only matters what you do in the playoffs. You just got to get into the playoff. And I think for the Toronto Maple Leafs, their one issue was defense, or their other issue would be maintaining Freddie Anderson and his playing time. I think if you're playing a lot of Hutchinson or whoever the backup goalie is, that might slide a few more losses towards the Toronto Maple Leafs and maybe getting them into that first wildcard spot versus a division spot. So maybe that's one of the reasoning. But their defense did get better, and that's no question. So I do think once they get into the playoffs, whether it's breaking that curse against the Boston Bruins or just avoiding them altogether, I do think the Toronto Maple Leafs are a Stanley Cup favorite. And number 4, speaking of the Boston Bruins, the Boston Bruins. So I do think with the Bruins losing in the Stanley Cup final to the St. Louis Blues, I think they're hungry. I think with Marchand, Pasternak, Bergeron, name the rest of the team, I think you go down the list. Yes, they lost a couple guys, whether it's a guy like Noel Acciari, but then you kind of fill that out with a guy like Brett Ritchie. So they didn't really lose any huge pieces. They got to re-sign McAvoy. They re-signed Carlo. They re-signed Heinen. So they got their big pieces back. And the tandem of Rask and Halak is still there. So I do think the Boston Bruins are heading into the 2019-2020 season, as I make this video, being one of the best teams in the East. And I do think they're going to want revenge for themselves. And I think they will be a Stanley Cup favorite for 2020. Number 3, the Dallas Stars. So the Stars made some changes, big changes. They acquired Joe Pavelski through free agency, acquired Corey Perry through free agency, and I think their defense is just really solid. And I think another year of Heiskanen, I think if Ben Bishop has another great year, maybe he doesn't play as good as last year, but you know what? 80-90% of what he did last year, and you've got a top 10 goalie right there. So I think the forward group just got a lot better for the Dallas Stars. Maybe Rope Hintz takes more steps, and their top 6 is ridiculous. Jamie Benn, if he bounces back, we're talking about a Stanley Cup favorite 100% here with the Stars. Number 2, the Nashville Predators. So this might be a bit of a hot take. I just think with the addition of Matt Duchene, a full year on the team with Mikael Granlund, I think Dante Fabro could take some big steps. And I just think Pekka Rinne is going to realize this could be his final opportunity. So Pekka Rinne, UC Saros, that's a good tandem. And I think that forward group got even better of course, now you have a 1-2 of Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene. No question about that. So I am really excited about the Predators, and I have them as the second favorite. If you did watch my video, I did predict the Predators to win the Stanley Cup. We'll see if I get my prediction back-to-back years. I stuck with the Blues last year, and then going into the playoffs, I picked the Blues as well. So I did have my pick right. We'll see if I can get it right with the Preds. We'll see what my pick is prior to the playoffs, but I am going with my early pick being the Preds, but they are at my second spot. And number 1 is the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I do think the Lightning, once again, are the number 1 favorite to win the Stanley Cup. They have the best team on paper. They have the best team in the season. They just got to translate that into the playoffs. I mean, once you look at their roster, they, again, got better. They re-signed Braden Point. They got Kevin Shattenkirk, again, kind of underrated, but I think for Shattenkirk, if he's in a reduced role and with a good defensive player, maybe he has a bounce-back year. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, yes, they lost a guy like JT Miller, but that just gives more ice time for their younger players down the lineup, whether that's a guy like Matthew Joseph. So I think if you're looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think they didn't regress. I think Stamkos realizes what he needs to do. Kucherov needs to be smart in the playoffs. Hedman needs to be better in the playoffs. Vasilevsky just needs to keep doing what he's doing. So I think for the Lightning, again, they're the favorites. And again, like I said, the younger players down the lineup for the Lightning, they have such a good farm system as well. I think the Lightning will keep getting better and better in terms of the younger players. And I just think they're going to be consistent all year again. Like I said, can they do in the playoffs? That's the big question. But for now, they are my favorite for the Stanley Cup in 2020. So thank you for watching this video. Again, if you are new, please do subscribe, drop a like, comment your thoughts on my picks, and comment your picks as well. Hope to see you on the channel more, or if you're new, hope to see you on the channel in the future, and many more videos to come for the 2019-2020 NHL season. This was John from RPO Bay Hockey. Have a good one. Peace out.